Okay, so if you have anything, just ping in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so let's get started further. And as I said, if you understand levels, okay, you have one more element in case of datum elements, that's your grids. So grids and levels, the working of it, the modeling of it is almost the same. There is a minute difference, and one of the major differences, as we know, is the category. That is, grids is a different category, levels is a different category. Now, coming to categories, what are categories in Revit? So we need to know the hierarchy in case of Revit. So in case of Revit, you have categories, then comes as your families, then comes as your type. And I guess we know, everyone knows this. So your category would be door, window, walls, grids, levels. All these are different categories, columns, etc. Under that, under a specific category, you have different families. So let's take an example of any element. Let's say your levels, as we saw yesterday, right? So levels is a family, no doubt. We had taken it as a family, so that becomes a major family. Okay, in case of columns, your structural column is a category. Under that, you have different families. So in case of that, let's consider a round column, a rectangular column, any other columns. So those become families because those would act as individual. You have individual families coming into play. So we already know families is a different file. So that file is going to be used, right? So it's an individual file. That file is further divided into different types. That might be according to your properties. Okay, in instance properties or type properties. So if it is type properties, that means first of all families will be divided into types, and then the types are further divided into instance. So structural column, round column, further divided into different types as 600, 450 dia or radius of it, and then it's further divided into individual. That is your instance. So that's the hierarchy which we follow. So similarly, in case of levels and grids, they are different categories. The properties would differ obviously a bit. Why? Because everything else remains the same, as it's a graphical property. So line weights, all those parameters which are coming, those remain the same, but the purpose is different. So what is the difference and how is it going to be used, okay, in case of Revit, is what we'll understand right now. I hope my screen is visible to you all. Okay, so basically, as we saw, I level 1 floor plan. If I want to create a level, I cannot be in my floor plan view. I need to go in my south elevation view or section view, let's say. So now in case of grids, you can actually create grids in plan view. Okay, so where are grids being used? Major purpose in case of Revit is your center line plans. Your grids are going to help you to locate your column positions in Revit. Okay, in your structural drawings. So that's the reason you use your grids. So grids might come up on a later on stage. Okay, so at the start of your project, you just need levels. That's a compulsion, no doubt. Grids might come on a later on stage when you have your column placements, when you actually start with documentation, etc. In that scenario, your grids would come into play. The modeling remains the same. So if I go to my plan view, this is your grid. Okay, so as you can see, modifying tool, and these are your drawing tools. Okay, so we need to have these 4 drawing tools right now. First we'll understand these. Okay, and coming back to this, we'll see it later. So the first 3 are basically your drawing, proper specifying it, individually drawing it. Fourth one is picking up a line. That's similar to pick up a level as a reference. Okay, so as you can see, drawing tool. So let's say first click, second click, your first grid is created. This is the name for it, or the number, you can say. Okay, similarly, if you go here, we already know the dimension, reference dimension line comes up. Blue dotted line signifies the alignment. Okay, so this is how one way you can do it. You also have pick a line, so picking up a reference and creating a grid. So let's say 5000 is an offset. And similar to your levels, you can see your grid numbering also goes on. This would happen in case of numericals and alphabets. Okay, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. That's what it will take automatically. If you want to name it some other way, you'll need to do it manually. Okay. So in your, once this is done, let's say I have to create my horizontal grid now. So again, the same way. Now in this case, I want to name my horizontals in alphabets A, B, C, D. So
Hello, ma'am.
let's, yeah, yes,
मैम फिर से समझाओ ना मैम.
grids.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll just undo this once again. Okay, तो we were talking about grids. If you understand levels, आपको हिंदी मिक्सचर चाहिए क्या? It would be better for you all.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, cool.
Yes, ma'am.
cool, no problem. So basically हम लोग क्या बात कर रहे थे तो आपको अगर लेवल समझ में आएगा तो ग्रिड्स वुड बी इजियर. क्यों? क्योंकि लेवल्स एंड ग्रिड्स का जो भी वर्किंग है, जो भी मॉडलिंग है, दैट इज सिमिलर. ओके, सो इवन द प्रॉपर्टीज जो हम लोग देख रहे हैं इन केस ऑफ इंस्टेंस एंड टाइप, मोस्ट ऑफ देम वुड बी सिमिलर. वाई? क्योंकि वो ग्राफिकल प्रॉपर्टीज है. ओके, इसके वजह से वो ईजी पड़ेगा आपको समझने के लिए. Okay, I'll have a mixture of it. Okay, because there is a thing in your going on, so no problem. And मैं थोड़ा slow जाऊंगी फिर. I'll just go a bit slow even if it's in English. That would be better for everyone. Okay, so that's the reason levels and grids are pretty simple. So in your levels, you just model it in elevation or section. It's only activated there. Whereas grids, you can model it in your plan view as well. So if I go to plan view, grid, okay, these are your drawing tools, the 4 ones which you see. These are important right now. Okay, so the important things while we work with perspective of BIM modeling is what we are focusing on. So these 4. So first 3 are basically drawing your or specifying it manually. Okay, grids. Whereas pick a line is picking a reference, similar to how we did it in levels. Okay, so first line, first click, second click, your grid is created, and you can see your number takes up automatically. The blue dimension line is a reference dimension. The blue dotted line signifies the alignment of the next grid. So it lets us know that the two grids, the grid which you are making right now, is also aligned. So first click, second click. So 1, 2, automatically the numbering is going to happen. Pick a line is picking a reference. So from grid 2, you want grid 3 to be created 5000 offset. So I specify my offset. Wherever you have the blue dotted line, it would get created. Clear? So that's how my grids are created. Now let's say I want to create a horizontal grid. So what I do, grid, first click, second click. I've created my horizontal grid. Okay. So in your, what I do is, once I create my horizontal grid, let's say my numbering of my grid would be, or the naming in this case would be ABC. So I say A. So automatically now the next grid which would be created would take the name as B. Why? Like I said, similar to levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. It's similar to that. Okay. So grid, pick a line, 5000, and you can see B, C, D, E, F. Likewise, you can go on create. So that's how you create a grid. Yes, I'm coming to you. Yes, Ruchi, I'm coming to you.
Why do we have it as 5,000?
Okay, sorry, why do we have?
It as 5,000. You gave it as 5,000, right? The offset distance
Yes.
was 5,000 mm. Why did you give it as 5,000?
It's just temporary. I am just showing you. It's an example. You can have it as you want, as the requirement. It's just for my reference. I'm just considering that grid to grid distance I am considering as 5000. Might be you might have 1000, or it might vary. What are grids used for? As I said, they'll be used as your center lines, right, to locate your columns. So in that case, according to your columns, it would get placed. Okay, not randomly. Clear? So we'll come to column. Yeah, we'll come to column. 5000 is just for your reference right now. I've taken up. Okay. One moment. Please repeat how to change the grid name. Yes, I'll repeat that over. Ruchi, yes. What query do you have? What's your question? Okay, I don't know.
She only said to repeat again.
Okay, that's the. Okay, this was the message. Okay. Okay, basically, what repeat you want from the start are you talking, or just the part where the naming changes and how does it work? That's what you're talking about. Just ping once more. We can just go through it as well. Okay, so changing the name, basically, what is a name? It's a property of an individual grid. So while you're working in your workspace, if you want to change, I'll select my grid, and once you hover over the name, if you click it, automatically it will allow you to change. Clear? or else it's a property, so we know it is going to be in your property panel. So if you go, you can see you have a property panel where you have a name, identity data. Okay, so it's A. So instance property, as you can see, each grid has its own name. Okay, family and type remains the same. 6.5 bubble, it remains the same. Clear? So this is how it works. And as you were asking, you can take up any random number right now. It's just 5,000 for my reference. If you want to create a grid which is, let's say, 1,000 offset, that's how I can create it. Similarly, if I want it in your 1,000 offset, that's how I would create it. Now here it's 8 and 9, so I'll change this particular name. Okay, so that's how you work with your grids. Simple modeling, similar to levels. Okay, if you see the properties in this case, as I said, major properties we need to keep in mind is your name in case of instance, and family and type. By default you have these three. Grid is the family, these are the different types for it. Okay, we'll see what's the difference between these two as well, but right now we'll just keep the default. Okay, if you go to edit type, family is grid, type is 6.5 bubble. It's a type property. So if I change anything here, it is going to get reflected everywhere wherever you've used that particular family and type. So you can see it's all related to graphics. So if I say this, okay, both the sides my grids are symbols are visible. It's similar to levels, no difference. Okay, whatever changes you have in case of graphics, you can change it over. Okay, now in this case you have a center segment which is continuous. Now this is something which is new in case of grids, which was not there for levels. Okay, so what is that? Basically, if you see, this is a continuous grid, and as we know, like as I've mentioned earlier as well, that your grids are going to be used as your center line plans. Okay, so if it is a center line plan, might be at times, it depends on your presentation. Okay, so what happens is sometimes according to your presentations, you might require to show your structural layout, or let's say columns, and your plan, okay, floor plan, both together, as well as you want to show your grid lines. That's the requirement. Okay, so some sort of a requirement. So in that case, what happens is you have your columns, etc., coming in. So you'll have your grids, right, that defines the center lines, and you also have your floor plan. So you'll have your walls coming in. So in that case, just imagine the chaos which is going to happen on your plan. So you'll have so many lines up to it. Like you'll have your walls, both the lines of the walls. If it's in detail, you'll have all the layer lines as well. So what is going to happen? Plus you have your center line. So it's going to be a chaos. And for us, presentation wise, it's always important that whenever you have a plan handed over, it needs to be very clear. It needs to be very clear and readable. Okay, you don't need to be there for explaining. You cannot be there every time for explaining what is going on. The plan itself needs to be readable. Okay, so in that case, what can we do with the graphics of our grids? How can you actually clean out your plan? So you have an option in case of edit type. That's your center segment. It's regarding your segment graphic. What is a segment? This grid, individual grid, is a segment, one single line, right? So it's a segment, one line. So right now it's a continuous one. What does that mean? You can see all over it takes the same property. So Revit gives you an option of having a custom one. So you can see the properties, the parameters increase over here. What is custom going to do? Custom is going to allow you to divide this one segment, one grid, into three parts, three different parts. Which three parts? Start,
मैम
end and center. Yes,
मैम हिंदी का यूज भी कर सकती है थोड़ा सा
हिंदी में.
जी मिक्स कर दीजिए
Okay, okay, no problem. Okay, so we were talking about your property of center segment. तो उसका मतलब क्या है? तो हम लोग why do we use grids? जैसे हम लोग ने बोला वो सेंटर लाइन के लिए यूज होता है. तो अकॉर्डिंग टू योर प्रेजेंटेशन, कभी कभार रिक्वायरमेंट के हिसाब से आपको प्लान दिखाना पड़ेगा, कॉलम दिखाना पड़ेगा, ग्रिड्स दिखाना पड़ेगा, सारा कुछ दिखाना पड़ेगा अकॉर्डिंग टू द रिक्वायरमेंट. तो वो टाइम पे जब भी आप प्लान में ये सारी चीज़ें डाल रहे हो, प्लान बहुत केओटिक हो जाता है, बहुत कंफ्यूजन हो जाता है, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लाइंस दिखते हैं उसमें। तो अगर हम लोग को एक प्लान जब भी हम लोग दे रहे हैं, ऑन साइट दे रहे हैं या फिर किसी को भी दे रहे हैं, यू आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी देयर, आप हमेशा उधर नहीं रहेंगे एक्सप्लेन करने के लिए। सो इसके वजह से व्हाट वी नीड टू कीप इन माइंड कि वो प्लान खुद से ही रीडेबल होना चाहिए, खुद से ही वो अपने आप को एक्सप्लेन करना चाहिए। सो दैट्स द स्किल फॉर प्रेजेंटेशन। सो वो अगर हम लोग को करना है तो रेविट ने हम लोग को एक अच्छा खासा ऑप्शन दिया है, प्लस हम लोग नॉर्मल स्टैंडर्ड वे में भी वी यूज दैट। ओके, व्हाट हैपेंस इज मेनी ऑफ द टाइम्स व्हाट वी डू, इफ यू हैव अ प्लान एंड यू ऑल्सो वांट टू शो योर ग्रिड्स, तो हम लोग क्या करते हैं, यू हैव योर प्लान ओवर योर एंड द ग्रिड्स आर जस्ट ऑन द आउटर फेस। ओके, बीच में हम लोग ग्रिड्स नहीं दिखाते, ग्रिड्स हम लोग के सिर्फ आउटर फेस में होते हैं, या फिर दिखाएंगे ना तो भी वो बहुत लाइट होते हैं, लाइट एकदम लाइट, लाइन वेट भी उसका बहुत कम होता है। सो योर लाइन वेट इज लेस, योर कलर इज डिफरेंट, ओके, इवन इफ यू वांट टू शो, और एल्स वी डोंट शो इट एट ऑल। सो ये सारे चीजें करने के लिए यू हैव एन ऑप्शन ऑफ सेगमेंट, सेंटर सेगमेंट जो ऑप्शन है राइट नाउ इट्स कंटिन्यूस, दैट मीन्स इट्स वन सिंगल सेगमेंट। इसको हम लोग कस्टमाइज कर सकते हैं यूजिंग कस्टम, एंड यू कैन सी यू हैव पैरामीटर्स एडेड ऑन। कस्टम क्या करता है, इट डिवाइड्स दिस वन सिंगल ग्रिड इनटू 3 पार्ट्स। ओके, इट डिवाइड्स इट इनटू 3 पार्ट्स। व्हाट आर द 3 पार्ट्स? स्टार्ट, एंड एंड सेंटर। ओके, सो वो हम लोग को जो एंड्स वाले हैं ना, दैट इज स्टार्ट एंड एंड, उसको हम लोग एंड सेगमेंट, वी कॉल इट एज एंड सेगमेंट्स, whereas the center is known as a center segment. So it divides it into 3 parts, and that's the reason you can see once you make it custom, you have center segment and you have end segment parameters coming into play. When it was just continuous, you just had one segment, end segment. If I make it custom, center and end, so you can have 2 different properties, उसका line weight and उसका color, दोनों भी अलग अलग हो सकते हैं। Okay, so let's say if my center, as I said, center segment बीच में आएगा, so might be वो हम लोग को light रखना है वो, so what I do is I'll give it line weight as 1, सबसे less, and the color let's keep it gray right now. You can change it from here as well. Okay, center pattern, ये जो pattern है line का, that also can be changed, so let's change it to dots. Okay, or else yeah, let's keep it dot right now, or else it won't be seen actually. Hidden lines, hidden, let's keep it hidden. And end segment, that is the start and end part, let's say the line weight as 5, the color to be, let's keep it red. Okay, end segment pattern grid line rakho, ya fir let's change it to solid. Okay, and I say okay, and you can see it has been changed. So इसमें क्या हो गया, इसमें हम लोग के grids are visible।
इस वाला बॉक्स कैसे है तो हम
आपका आवाज नहीं आ रहा है,
दिखाऊं।
सॉरी।
वो प्रॉपर्टीज वाला बॉक्स है ना मैम, जो चेंजेस करना है लाइन में,
हाँ, वो नहीं
मैम कैसे आता है वो?
दिख रहा नहीं है वो। ओके, बेसिकली वो लाइन में चेंजेस करना है तो सिलेक्ट योर ग्रिड, इट्स अ ग्रिड प्रॉपर्टी, एडिट टाइप में जाओगे आप, उधर दिखेगा आपको, ठीक है।
ओके ओके।
Just one question, ma'am. I just wanted to ask that do we have to make a duplicate of the existing, grid? Because if we are going to make a change, then it's going to be permanently getting saved in your Revit file, or I wanted to know.
It will get permanently saved for this particular Revit file. So that's the reason we always suggest to duplicate and create your own type.
Yes.
It's always better. Okay. So
that's the thing that
yeah. So duplicate. Let's say I'll create it as a new. Okay. Custom gray 5 red, let's keep the solid, apply, okay, and you can see it. Okay, it's only for this. Why? Because this is a different family and type, this is a different type, this is the one which I created right now by duplication. So let's say all my horizontal ones, so I'll just select all the horizontal, bubble new, and you can see it has taken that property. So this is going to help you to have your plan much more visible. Let's say if I want it for this as well. Clear? Now in this case, this particular end segments which you see, you can actually control the length of it. Okay, what does that mean? If I go to edit type, you can see end segment length, it's 25. So look at this particular part over here. If I make this as 75, apply, you can see it extends. So that's the length of it. So you can actually control those lengths. Clear enough? Okay, so this is how it works. Now in this case, rest of the properties remain the same as I said. So here you also have one more option. If you don't need this particular line at all, that is the center one, just go to edit type and have this as white. Automatically that's not visible. It would be just this particular grid. So automatically your plan is on the plan is inside and it's much more clear, as well as your grids are visible. Okay, so that's how it works. Now in this case, rest of the properties remain the same. So as you can see, extend. Okay.
मैम एक क्वेश्चन है, ये
Yes.
आपका तो वाइट दिख रहा है सब कुछ बैकग्राउंड में, हमारा लाइक ग्रे दिखता है.
कौन सा ये बैकग्राउंड?
हाँ, ये इसको चेंज करना.
ओके, इसको चेंज करने के लिए व्हाट यू कैन डू इज, आपका कौन सा वर्जन है?
24
24 वर्जन है?
24 हाँ 24.
ओके, आई विल शो यू. अभी ये 24 में न्यू फीचर है, इसके वजह से वो आपको दिख रहा है. लेट मी जस्ट ओपन इट, इट विल ओपन, आई विल शो यू. Okay, once it's open I'll show you. So basically this is how it works. So you can see extends, फिर उसका visibility for your bubble individually, etc. All those can be done similar to your levels. Okay, now इसमें just remember, once you create a grid, okay, you have created it on level 1. It is a 3D grid. It is going to get created on all the levels. So if you say, let's go to south view, and you can see your grid is visible in your elevations and sections as well, and that's the reason your grid is also seen here. Okay, that's because it's going to be applied everywhere. Okay, so what I do is I'll just create levels just randomly, just for understanding. Okay, so now if you see, I have created this on level 1, and as prior to creation of the levels there was only one level, right? Just a moment. Prior to creating other levels there was only level 1 and level 2. So if you go to level 2, you can see grids are also created on that level. If you had created all the levels prior, automatically your grids would be there on all the levels. Right now if you see, they're not visible on level 3. Why? One of the reasons I'll show you. I'll go to south view. You can see your grids, where are they ending? Level 2. I'll just extend this. If you see this now, level 3, level 4, level 5, 7. And why only verticals are there? Why? Because this is south. So from your south view, which are the grids? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or the numbered ones. So you can see only those grids are visible. So automatically when you extend, you're just extending the vertical grids. If you go to your east elevation or west elevation, you can see this in here. You can see this here. So what we can do is, if I extend this as well, now if you see level 3, all of them are visible on all the levels. Clear? So visibility control for your grids automatically. If you have created the levels prior, if you have created all level 10 till level 10 prior to creating your grids, automatically if you create it on level 1, it would be visible everywhere. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing, if you create it later and if you go to any section or elevation, you'll automatically understand till which level the grids are going up. Okay,
मैडम और एक बार रिपीट करिए इसको.
yes. So basically जब भी हम लोग ग्रिड्स बना रहे हैं, सो बिफोर ग्रिड्स क्रिएशन, ओके, आपने अगर सारे लेवल्स बना दिए हैं तो फिर ऑटो, सॉरी
मैम ये लेवल्स वाला कॉलम नहीं आ रहा है मैम, टेबुलर कॉलम लेवल्स का.
ये वाला?
हाँ मैम, हाँ वो प्रॉपर्टी ब्राउजर वो नहीं आ रहा है.
ओके, प्रोजेक्ट ब्राउजर, आप व्यू में जाओ, यूजर इंटरफेस, और इधर प्रोजेक्ट ब्राउजर है, देखो. ठीक है, जस्ट टिक करो, ऑटोमेटिकली वो विजिबल हो जाएगा.
ओके मैम, थैंक यू.
या सो कमिंग बैक टू दिस, अगर आप ग्रिड्स बना रहे हो तो ग्रिड्स बनाने के पहले इफ यू हैव दीज 10 लेवल्स क्रिएटेड, ऑटोमेटिकली योर ग्रिड्स वुड बी क्रिएटेड इन ऑल द 10 लेवल्स. और अगर आपने ग्रिड्स पहले बनाया एंड बाद में लेवल्स बनाए, तो आप कौन से भी एलिवेशन या सेक्शन में जाके देख सकते हो कि ग्रिड्स किधर तक एक्सटेंड हो रहे हैं. तो अगर ग्रिड्स आपके पूरे एक्सटेंड हो रहे हैं तो सारे लेवल्स पे दिखेंगे. इफ द ग्रिड्स आर जस्ट एक्सटेंडिंग टिल लेवल 6, यू कैन सी अगर मैं लेवल 7 पे जाऊंगी, you don't have those vertical grids. Why? Because मेरे वो vertical सिर्फ level 6 तक जा रहे हैं. So this is the understanding of how grids work. Okay? Usually जब भी grids कर रहे हो वो पूरे जाते हैं ऊपर, ठीक है, all over. Understood? That's how it works.
मैम व्यू में जाने के बाद किधर जाना है मैम?
Sorry?
व्यू में जाने के बाद मैम
View में जाने के बाद user interface and you have project browser over here.
ओके ओके.
Yeah. Okay.
मैम
Yes.
वो एक्सटेंड कैसे करना है ग्रिड को, क्योंकि मेरे इसमें सिर्फ मूव का ऑप्शन आ रहा है.
मूव नहीं करना है, आप कौन सा भी ग्रिड को सिलेक्ट करो एंड आपको ये सर्किल दिखेगा छोटा, उसको सिलेक्ट करके ड्रैग करो. ओके. एलिवेशन में भी सेम, सिलेक्ट करो, सर्किल दिखेगा, उसको सिलेक्ट करके ड्रैग करो.
लेवल्स के लिए भी सेम है ना?
हाँ, लेवल्स के लिए भी सेम है.
ओके.
ठीक है. ओके. नाउ let's say if from level, okay, let's say from level 1 till level 7, okay, till level 7 my horizontal grids extend till here. Why? Because my structure is like this, so I might have my horizontal grids extending. You also have your verticals, no doubt, but I'm just giving you an example. So someone had a doubt, I guess Shelly had a doubt or someone regarding the 2D and 3D, and I said it would better be explained in your, so you can see it right now, how does that work, okay, and where that significance would come in case of grids as well. Okay, so Ruchi, I will come back to you. Okay, so basically if you see it extend, so from level 1 to level 7 it is going to extend. Okay, so level 1 if you see, yes, my grid is extending, level 2 also, level 4 till level 7 I know it extends. Okay, above that, so let's go to level 8. From level 8 onwards my grids need to end over here, that's the requirement. Okay, so now how are you going to work it over? From level 8 to level 10 they need to end here. So if I go to level 8 and if I drag and end it here, okay, if you check below, it has taken up the same graphical option. Why? Because the grid is in 3D mode. Okay, so if I just drag this, it's going to be applied throughout. It's 3D mode. So from level 8 I know my grids need to end here. So what I do is I make this 2D and have it ended here. Similar, I make this 2D, I have this here. Okay, so you will do this for this particular view, level 8. So the upper levels also need it till here. So level 7 stays where it is, below that it stays where it is. Level 8 I have modified it. What happens on level 9 then? Level 9 is still as 3D. Why? Because whatever you have changed, it's 2D, so it's view specific. Okay, only for level 8. वो सिर्फ level 8 के लिए applicable हो गया, because अब हम लोग ने 2D में convert कर दिया. So level 9 में original वाला ही है. So I need from level 8 onwards मेरे को ये changes apply करना है. So right now for one level it's okay, you can make this 2D and change it over. Also if it's just a matter of 1 or 2 levels you can do it manually. But on a large scale project, let's say on a high rise structure, it's G plus 50 story structure, and from 25th level my structure reduces and मेरा ये जो grids है वो इधर ही end हो रहा है. So 25 levels above, are you going to go on each level and make it 2D and change it? No, because that is not what needs to be done. That's not the way of doing it. Basically it is a time consuming process if you go to individual and do it. Okay, so Revit has given you an option. Okay, select the graphical changes. Okay, select the elements of which the graphical changes need to be made. Okay, so ये दो levels का, let's say I want to have it applied, same graphics on 9 and 10 as well. तो मैं क्या करूँगी, I'll select these two and I say propagate extends. You get these options. Okay, so I just select this and you can see you get all the views in which these grids can be applied. सो स्ट्रक्चरल प्लान में आता है, सीलिंग प्लान्स में आता है, फ्लोर प्लान्स में आता है, तो सारे लेवल्स एंड उसके व्यूज आ गए इसमें. So I need it to be applied in only floor plan 9 and 10. So I'll just select 9 and 10 and I say okay. Level 8 pe thi. If I go to 9, you can see it's done. On 10 also
Ma'am,
it's done.
can you please repeat this thing once again from where we did it?
Yes. So let's say level 8, I have made these modifications E and D, right? Level 9 and level 10 also need the same. So what I do is I select these elements and you can see propagate extends datum option. So just say propagate extends. You'll get all the views where this is applied. Where do you need to apply it? I just need to apply it in floor plan view, level 9 and level 10. So floor plan, level 9 and level 10. If it's applied for ceiling plan, you can do that. If it's applied for structural, you can do that as well. But right now, it's only, I need it only for floor plan. So I'll just select the two levels. Okay. Once you're done, you can see level 9, level 10 automatically. It's in 2D and you can see. You never changed it in level 10. You just did it once in level 8. So that's how it works. That's how 2D, 3D conversion, and if you want it applied to different levels, how it will work. Clear? Now, let's say if you have this, this done over here. So this is a graphical thing which you have done, let's say. So I need to apply this. Will it be applied in level 9, level 8? No. Why? Because it's 2D. So to apply that, I'll select this, propagate extends, level 8, level 9. Okay. Now it is applied in level 8 and level 9. Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute. Ruchi, how to change grid name or number? It's very simple. Select this and you can just click over here and change it over. Okay? Or else select it and change it from the properties. Clear? Okay. Can be useful in column layout. What can be useful? Your grids, yes, your grids will be the major thing in column. Why? Because when you have center lines, when you have column locations to be done, your grids are going to be coming into use. And we'll see how. I'll just give you an example, okay, of how it locates your column so you'll understand it. Clear? Okay. Copy wala option समझ नहीं
Ma'am.
है. What? Yes, Ruchi.
Ma'am, how to create levels? Actually, I have only level 0 and 1.
Okay. So you were there yesterday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so yesterday's session we have covered up how to create levels. It's go to any elevation or section, okay, architecture tab and level, and automatically you can select this, have an offset, let's say 2000, and my level is created automatically. Clear? So likewise,
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
be creating our levels. Rest of the things are similar. Grids and levels, graphics are similar. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so this is how grids work. Now in grids, you have one more option while you create a grid. It's regarding your, circular, an arc grid. So your arc grids, if you create an arc grid, okay, you have created this arc grid. Now, this is your south view, right? If I go to my south elevation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so all your 10 grids would be visible. So if I go to south, you can see my grids are visible, but there is no 10th grid visible. So why is that? We come to know that as it's an arc grid, it is not visible. But why an arc grid cannot be visible? Any idea? Why an arc grid cannot be visible in your, what can be the logic behind it, let's say? Anyone? Any wild guess? Okay, no problem.
And it,
Yeah, someone? Yes?
if you see, it would be a simple line. If you see from the south elevation.
Right. Yeah, you are pretty close. Like, yes. See, these grids are single line, okay, a straight line. So if you cut a section, let's say, okay, if you cut a section over here and you
It's
look,
because of the multiple lines that will be created because of the
yes,
arc.
yes,
thing.
it would be multiple lines. So you don't have a common axis in case of arc. The axis goes on changing. Okay, if you cut a section here, the axis is here. If you cut a section here, it moves. Okay, so each section, each part has a different center line, and that's the reason you cannot see or cannot your arc grids are not visible in case of your views, in case of elevation and section views. Okay, that's the only thing. Okay, so this is how your grids work. Now coming back to grids, purpose of it, what we were talking about. So as I said, it is used majorly for your centerline layout. So what are centerline layouts? Column locations, they'll help you to locate your columns. So in case of Revit, as I said, grids are used for it. So this might be coming up on a later stage, your grids coming into use, but how would they be used? So for a simple purpose, if I just, you can see this particular grid and this particular grid. Okay, let's have a column. I'm just placing a random column. Okay, sorry, placing random columns right now. So when you move further, when you start with structure, you'll understand how this columns would be done, etc. So don't worry about that right now, just for reference. So if you see, this is a column. If I select this column and check the properties of it, okay, you have a property of column location which you cannot change. It's automatically taken up. You can see it has a value of G and 1. What's this? This defines the center lines on which it lies or which it is related to. So G and 1, if you see carefully, G and 1. If I have this, F and 2. Okay, let's talk about this. It says D 2100 and 4. D 2100. So from D it goes positive 2100. Okay, and 4. Similarly here, this is D 700 positive and 4 negative minus 1800. So it helps you to locate it basically. Now this might seem a bit tedious right now, but when you actually have your working drawings done, when you have your center lines created, etc., you'll understand how this would be used. Also, while you document, when you extract data for columns while you're working, okay, it's not always that every data you're extracting from the model is going to be used for presentation or is going to be used while construction. No, some data can be extracted for your own reference, which might be used in a very different way. Okay, so that's how this data can be used in a different way for your own working. Okay, it might not be necessary to be provided on site, but some of them might be used for your own work. So likewise, you have many options, so you will be coming up with that in case of schedules, in case of extraction of quantities. Okay, in that case you'll understand it. So that's how this particular grid is associated with a column. Also, if you see, if I move this grid, your column is also moving. Why? Because the column is associated with your grids, and that's the reason your grid lines play a very important role. So once you create your grid lines, always suggested select and pin it over so that they don't move, because if by chance it is unpinned and it moves while working, it might happen error. Okay, it is going to cost you. Even a 5 mm difference on site is going to be very difficult to handle. So that's the reason you have to be very precise, and we suggest select and pin it over so that it doesn't move. Select the grids. If you have any modifications, select, unpin it, and then you can have it modified. Okay, and later on again select it and pin it over. That's it. Clear? So that's how you work with your grids in Revit. Any queries in your now regarding grids?
मैम इसमें जो लाइन वेट है
हाँ
ग्रिड का वो हम कम ज़्यादा कर सकते हैं क्या?
हाँ, तो आपने अगर ये वाला देखा, अगर हम लोग ने जो कस्टमाइज, जो न्यू ग्रिड बनाया हम लोग ने, उसमें हम लोग ने कस्टम किया, राइट? तो उसमें हम लोग ने 3 सेगमेंट्स में डिवाइड करके लाइन वेट्स चेंज किया. तो आपको अगर देखोगे तो एंड सेगमेंट जो है ये रेड वाले, वो 5 है उसका लाइन वेट, और सेंटर का सेगमेंट जो है वो 1 है लाइन वेट. तो अगर अभी मैं वर्किंग करते वक्त, जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा है, व्हेन यू आर वर्किंग इन रेविट, लाइन वेट्स ऑफ रखने का फॉर योर प्रिसिजन. While presenting, while taking out your data as print formats etc, you can on your line weights. So अभी अगर ये वाला जो ऑप्शन दिख रहा है सेक्शन के बाजू में, this is for your line weight control. So this is right now off. If I click this, you can see your line weight is on. So अपने आप वो line weights ले लेगा. Okay?
तो ये मैम कलर वाइज लेता है या यहाँ पे जो
नहीं,
हमने एडिट किया उसके अकॉर्डिंग?
यहाँ पे जो लाइन वेट दिया ना इधर,
जी,
इससे वो लेगा, ये नंबर से लेगा. ये अगर मैंने 9 किया, यू कैन सी, ये अगर तो इट विल रिड्यूस। तो वो ये
जो मैम
वैल्यू
बीच
से
में
लेगा।
जी
ओके
जो मैम बीच में डॉट्स है ये भी कम ज्यादा हो सकते हैं जो
हाँ
डॉट्स
हाँ
बीच में।
हाँ, वो तो हम लोग का सेंटर सेगमेंट है, तो इधर से हो सकता है वो। अगर वो मैंने किया चलो 60, सो यू कैन सी द डिफरेंस।
नहीं थिकनेस नहीं मैम, स्पेसिंग।
स्पेसिंग,
थिकनेस होगा।
यस यस,
यस
स्पेसिंग भी हो सकता है, बट स्पेसिंग के लिए जैसे मैंने लास्ट टाइम भी बोला, यू हैव अ सेशन ऑफ एडिशनल सेटिंग्स। इफ यू गो टू मैनेज टैब, यू हैव व्हाट इज नोन एज एडिशनल सेटिंग्स। सो उसमें हम लोग का लाइन वेट्स कैसे फिगर आउट करने हैं, उसका लाइन टाइप जो है, जो हम लोग अभी देख रहे हैं वो, फिर बाय डिफॉल्ट ग्रिड लाइंस का एक लाइन टाइप आता है, वो कैसे होता है फॉर्मुलेट। सो वो सारी चीज़ें हम लोग को इसमें दिखेगी। फिर इसमें और एक ऑप्शन है ऑफ हैचिंग, जो हम लोग हैचेस यूज करते हैं। इधर हम लोग के रेविट में यू हैव पैटर्न्स, ओके, फिल पैटर्न्स। सो in that case it is similar to working with hatch in CAD. so उसके patterns कैसे create होते हैं, तो वो सब हम लोग वो वाले सेशन में सीखेंगे कि creation of new line types, dash dot, उसके distance, in between distance, वो सब changes वो हम लोग के additional settings में होता है। ठीक है।
जी मैम, एक बिल्डिंग लाइन है, सपोज जैसे बिल्डिंग लाइन मेरा 3 ग्रिड तक खत्म हो रहा है, बिल्डिंग लाइन स्टार्ट हो रहा है, फिर एक बिल्डिंग लाइन इधर से शुरू हो रहा है, तो ऐसा ग्रिड भी हम लगा सकते हैं क्या जो बीच में जो 3 ग्रिड तक चले उसके बाद एंड हो जाए, ऐसा भी कर सकते हैं क्या, या ग्रिड पूरा पूरा आएगा?
मतलब ये वाला ग्रिड आप जो बोल रहे हो वो मेरे को अगर इधर ही
जी।
एंड करना है, ठीक है,
जी फर्स्ट 3 में एंड करना है।
ओके, इधर ये वाले इसमें,
यस जी जी।
तो ये इधर एंड करना है। और उसके बाद क्या बोला आपने?
जैसे बिल्डिंग लाइन शो करते हैं ना, बिल्डिंग लाइन मेरी ये फ्रीज कर दिया,
हाँ
बिल्डिंग लाइन शो करने के लिए। जी
हाँ, ओके, एंड उसके बाद फिर से अलग से और एक ग्रिड बनाना है आपको।
जी जी मैम।
हाँ, बट वो ग्रिड्स अगर सेम ग्रिड है तो आप वो नहीं कर सकते, अलग वाला ग्रिड है ना तो आप बना सकते हो, समझा?
नहीं सिंगल ग्रिड में मुझे यूज करना है मैम, यहीं पे एंड करना है 3 पर, मतलब एक ग्रिड स्टार्ट किया और 3 पे एंड कर दिया।
हाँ, सिंगल ग्रिड,
हाँ,
ओके
ओके,
ओके ओके, समझा मुझे। यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट वन सिंगल ग्रिड, ऐसे बोल
Yes,
रहे हो।
ma'am.
हाँ, ये कर सकते हो ना आप, अनलॉक का
Okay.
ऑप्शन है ना हम लोग के पास, अनलॉक करो।
Okay.
वो अपने आप ये एक साथ मूव क्यों हो रहा है? इफ यू सी ये अलाइनमेंट में ये जो ब्लू डॉटेड लाइन है ना, दैट्स नथिंग बट
जी।
इट्स शोइंग यू दैट ऑल द ग्रिड्स आर अलाइंड। इफ दे आर अलाइंड
Okay.
दे विल मूव टुगेदर। ओके, आपको अगर वो एक साथ नहीं चाहिए, ये वाला एडिट करना है, तो इसको अनलॉक करके यू कैन मूव। क्लियर?
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
Yes. Okay. Yes. So yeah, everyone got it? Yes, Lakshmi.
So in case it's like a C-shaped building, right, in the plan, like
Yes.
I'm just continuing, I just got this when he was talking. If it's a C-shaped building and grids are there in 2 legs of the C, so in between you don't need the grid line to be shown.
Yes.
So can we copy the same A grid line to the other leg of the C?
No. Copying a grid line would create a new grid.
Okay. So
Okay.
how do we do this?
So basically,
it has to
if-
extend completely.
It would extend completely. Okay. And what you can do is you have an option of dividing it into 3 parts, right? So if it extends continuously, the center part which is there, just make it white. It would be gone.
Okay.
So if I make this white, okay, I'll just extend this to 50. You can see. So in center you don't have any grid, only on the edge
On the
you'll have the grid.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a way of doing it. Okay, so any queries till now? Anyone? Any doubts regarding this?
No, ma'am.
मैम ये ग्रिड जो बनाते हैं वो पूरे प्लॉट एरिया के लिए बनाते हैं या जहाँ पे से बिल्डिंग कंस्ट्रक्ट होती है?
सिर्फ बिल्डिंग्स के लिए होगा ये। हम लोग ग्रिड लाइंस अभी ग्रिड लाइंस क्यों यूज कर रहे हैं? सेंटर लाइन के लिए, राइट? तो सेंटर लाइंस क्यों यूज होते हैं? हम लोग के कॉलम प्लेसमेंट, कॉलम लोकेशन के लिए। तो कॉलम एक इंडिविजुअल स्ट्रक्चर का होगा ना, तो स्ट्रक्चर के हिसाब से ग्रिड लाइंस बनेगा। सो अगर इट इज़ अ गुड क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली, ये क्वेरी आ सकता है। लेट्स से अभी एक सिंगल स्ट्रक्चर वाला प्रोजेक्ट रहा ना, तो इट्स ओके, वो अंडरस्टूड है, वो एक ही ग्रिड फॉर्मेट में रहेगा। बट इफ इट्स अ लार्ज स्केल प्रोजेक्ट, आपका एक कॉम्प्लेक्स है, राइट, लेट्स से, सो एक साइट है, उसके ऊपर 3 डिफरेंट स्ट्रक्चर्स। सो इन दैट केस ईच स्ट्रक्चर इज गोइंग टू हैव इट्स ओन ग्रिड लाइंस। ओके, सो उसके हिसाब से आप ग्रिड लाइंस बनाओगे, ईच स्ट्रक्चर का अलग आएगा। एंड एज वी नो इन रेविट आपका एक ही फाइल नहीं होगा, अगर मल्टीपल स्ट्रक्चर्स है, सो हर एक स्ट्रक्चर का अलग अलग फाइल रहेगा, विच वुड देन बी ब्रॉट टुगेदर ऑन योर साइट फाइल। अपने आप साइट लेवल पे वो लोकेट होगा, ठीक है, यूजिंग योर डेटम पॉइंट्स। सो हर एक फाइल में खुद का ही ग्रिड्स वर्कआउट होगा। यू वोंट बी हैविंग ग्रिड्स एज वन सिंगल ग्रिड प्लान, नो, हर एक का अलग अलग ग्रिड रहेगा। ओके, या okay, yeah, any queries regarding this, regarding levels and grids now? Everyone understood? Okay,
One question, ma'am. As you
Yes.
said that every building will have its own respective grid. So when we will be like, sometimes we have to even show the grids, like ground floor plan with respect to the site plan also. So
Yes.
in that case, how are we going to manage? Like, how is it going to be like? Because on the site plan there will be different buildings and
Yeah, that's okay. See, when you
these.
have, yes, when you have with respect to site plan, if you want all the ground floors together, okay, if that is the case, if you want all the structures together on the site plan, then you will be taking out that particular plan from the site file. Okay, so automatically in the site file you have all the three structures linked, so automatically when you extract that particular site level, you're going to get it. Also, if there is structure A, and only for structure A, if you want the site layout, you can extract that from both the files, from structure A as well as from structure from your site file. Why? Because remember, in case of BIM environment, your one file is not linked to the another. Like, it's not only linked to the another, the other file which you're linking it to, like your site file, you have your structure file being linked to the site file. Okay, but not only that happens in case of site, but it happens vice versa as well. In your structure file, your site file is also linked. So basically, when you're working in your structure file, you actually have a reference of the site file, and when you're working on a site file, you have a reference of your structure file. So it's always interlinked. So automatically, whenever you want to extract a data, you can extract from anywhere, but it depends what data extraction you're doing. So if it's together, all the three layouts, if you want, it will be extracted from the site. Why? Because you have all the three files linked. In case of individual structure, it will be from the structure file. Clear?
Yes. One more thing, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we do landscaping, so in that case, for reference purposes, we even form grids, right, on the
Yes.
site plan also.
Yes.
So will it be like cutting the building plan grids, and like how are we going to manage
Yes.
that?
See, so there are two ways how usually it's done. Okay. Some people, as you said, when you have landscaping, etc., you tend to, or while you're designing even a structure, you tend to use, if you're designing and if you're using a grid pattern, you tend to use a grid pattern. So you derive it from grids. The design is derived using grids. Okay, designed using grids. So in that case, there are two ways of how this works. Sometimes what happens is, we tend to use the grids, the element grid, which we learned right now, for creation or for while designing as well. And there is another option which you have is your model line or annotation lines, which you use as reference lines while you're designing. So when it's annotation or model lines being used, it's easier for you because they won't be bothering in case of grids, because they are not the same elements. Okay, so automatically the visibility of those can be controlled while you're extracting a particular data. Whereas in case of grids, yes, the visibility can be controlled, but it would be done using different filter options. Also, while you're working as a reference, while you're using the grids as a reference, you will then need to create it as a different grid type. And the actual grids which are used for construction drawings, they would be created as a different grid type. Why? Because later on stage, the reference grid types can be turned off in that particular view. Okay, so that's how it would be done.
Ma'am, one request. You must have done some large scale projects on which you
Yes.
have done. So, as a sample file, if you can show us so that we can relate what you are saying
Yes,
exactly.
we can do that, but right now, because this is a different system, my working system is different because those are pretty heavy. So we can come up to it when we actually start with coordination part, if that's okay, because that would be understood better on a larger scale project when you have 2 3 files when we are combining it together. So I can work from that, like we can take up a session from that system and we can just work it out. But that can happen. So I can definitely show you how does that work. Clear?
And ma'am, model lines and annotations that you were saying that you will be, taking up in near future, like, or you said now that grid lines we can do that. So, sorry, I'm saying you just said that regarding the model lines and annotations,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So, you're discussing it in near future. I'm just asking
Yeah,
this.
that will be covered up. So that's a
Okay.
part of annotation. So when we'll start with annotation and documentation part, you'll get those reference lines. How do they work? What are the different types of it? How would they work? So you will get to know how can they be used. Okay.
Do we use it for building plans also, like floor plans also?
Yeah, we do use it. What happens is, as I said, it is a Revit is a family based software, so one particular element can be used in multiple ways. So as I said, the annotation lines which we are talking about, they can be used in many different ways. One can be used for detailing it out according to your requirement, because they are 2D, right?
Okay.
Also, there is a concept of model lines, which is a 3D reference line. 2D lines are basically, if you create it on level 1, they would only be visible in level 1. Okay,
Okay.
but if you use model line instead of 2D line, okay, 2D annotation line, if you create it in level 1, it is not only going to be visible in level 1, but it will be visible in 3D as well. So it is like a reference in your 3D view as well. So when to use what, that would be understood as you work around. But yes, you do have options of using the same lines in different perspective and different ways. So it depends on your requirement, as I said. So annotation, the 2D line which I am talking about, it can be used as a reference line, or it can be used for detailing out a certain area in 2D, or it can be used in your section elevations for showing up details, for cleaning up your drawings, etc. So there are n number of options because it's a 2D element. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So anything else? Any other query regarding this? Anyone? Levels and grids, to be specific. Okay, so they both, as I said, lie on the same basis. They are known as your datum elements. Okay, so talking about the datum elements as well, when you start with coordination part, when we'll actually see how the Revit environment works, we'll talk about what is known as a datum file as well. So that's one of the ways you work in your BIM environment. So we'll be talking about that, and in that part, the datum file is the file which will consist of only your grids, levels, and your datum points. It consists of nothing else. So that plays a very important role as well. So how does that go about? We'll see. But for that, just be clear that levels and grids, it's almost similar in case of modeling. One of the easiest elements to model, but they are one of the important ones as well. Okay, so the whole model basically is based over this. If there is even a slight change, it is going to affect the whole model, whole extraction of data overall. Clear? Okay, so from the next session, we are actually going to start with your building elements. So the first few sessions will be dealing with it individually and working over with your projects as well. Okay, so I hope everyone has done with their CAD file. Okay, the practice project, at least the ground floor for now, so that you can at least start with it. But try and complete it over in this particular week itself. Okay, so that you can actually start over the modeling perfectly. So this is one thing to be clear. So from the next session, we are actually going to start with your building elements: walls, doors, windows, roof, floors, ceilings, etc. Clear? Okay, so this session would be uploaded by today midnight for sure, because one of the groups had an issue. The March batch had an issue regarding because of the website being down. So don't worry about that. It would be done by today midnight itself. Clear? Okay. Yeah, so for today we'll be winding up.
मैम ये क्लास
Yes.
रिकॉर्डेड पे कहाँ मिलेगी?
रिकॉर्डेड डैशबोर्ड पे मिलेगी. डैशबोर्ड पे हम लोग के नीचे आएंगे तो आपके रिकॉर्डेड सेशन की लिस्ट रहेंगे, तो उधर वो अपलोडेड होगी विद द डेट एंड द सेशन नेम इटसेल्फ. ओके, आपको डैशबोर्ड का लिंक मैं भेज दूंगी व्हाट्सएप पे आफ्टर द सेशन इफ यू हैव मिस्ड इट ओवर. ठीक है? ओके, या सो फॉर टुडे वील वाइंड अप. थैंक यू.